Terry Bogard. Now that that joke is out of the way, I'm free to talk about the latest Thor movie, Love and Thunder, the sequel to Ragnarok, from 2017. The last Thor movie was 5 years ago. 5 years... Oh my god. In this essay, I will briefly go over my thoughts on the movie. Not trying to take 4 months here. I probably won't be going too in-depth with the analysis. I mean, I want to keep it simple, plus I don't want to accidentally miss anything. Speaking of not missing... Thor knocked it out of the park again with this movie. I like the direction they've been taking him with these more comedic and lively films. Not to say I don't like the traditional Thor, the first one is still one of my favorite MCU movies, but it's nice to look at more than 3 colors. The characters are a lot more interesting too. All of their motives are clear and the story is relatively straightforward. I will be honest, there are parts of the movie that felt like they needed to be slower. The pacing doesn't jump around, but being 2 hours long, you can only pack in so much of the tale of 2 Thors. This of course means that there may be some characters that aren't in the movie as much as you would like them to be. However, that doesn't hinder them. Thor himself is still fun, but also still processing those big emotions, and this movie takes a deep dive into that. Jane Foster as Mighty Thor is an exciting addition, or rather great return, and Gorr is a villain that is as terrifying as he is formidable. If you're watching this video on the fence about seeing Thor Love and Thunder, I would say go see it. It's a fun time, especially if you see it with a group of friends like I did. That's basically it for all my non-spoiler thoughts in the movie, so before we get into the rest of the video, I have to give a big spoiler warning. Yeah, I know, I'm usually late to the party of making these videos, so it feels weird to give one, but yeah, spoilers. The first thing on this very disorganized list is how the movie looks. Like I said, the first Thor doesn't look bad, but the MCU overall likes to stick to its grays. Ever since Loki invented the color purple, Marvel has been starting to look better. The only problem is that you can't blend the CGI when everything is bright. The atmosphere is great. One of my favorite scenes is when Gorr is attacking New Asgard, and the whole town looks asleep. There is light, but it's not active. Honestly reminded me of Stockholm and Cry of Fear. Speaking of Gorr, the Shadow Realm. That's it, that's the tweet. I absolutely loved everything about this. Objects that produce light, like Mjolnir, were able to counteract the effects of the Shadow Realm, so you'd get these cool muted colors. Must be a callback. Yeah, I know, I just joked about these movies having no colors, but the effect was cool, okay? When Valkyrie took down the giant shadow monster thingy and all you saw was her silhouette and the lightning bolt, I liked that. Love and Thor has a nice aesthetic, and it's not afraid to experiment with something WandaVision would so shamelessly steal almost 2 years prior. Starting with the main man, I previously stated that this movie dives deep into his emotions, the humanity of Thor. I really like how the movie explores Thor's purpose. At this point, he has lost so much, and he doesn't know where to go. I don't think enough of these stories really focus on that. The Guardians aren't in the movie for too long, but before they fly off into their own solo film, Star-Lord gives some advice about how to find yourself, and this is subtly reflected in Thor's journey. It's the line about looking into the eyes of who you love. Yeah, you saw it in the trailer. As Thor reconnects with Jane, he reveals how he feels like she made him worthy, and showed him that there's no greater purpose than to help people. That purpose is then reflected at the end of the movie when he's adopted Gorr's daughter and is teaching her to help others in need. Since we're talking about Jane, we could talk about how she plays in this game. They've kept the story of her having cancer, and the way they bring her to Mjolnir is her traveling to New Asgard in search of a more magical solution when science hits a dead end. This is my example for when I said the plot stumbled a bit with the pacing. By the time Gorr gets to New Asgard, Jane is already Mighty Thor and fighting off his forces. It's revealed in an exposition montage that Thor somehow enchanted Mjolnir to always protect Jane. So her being worthy of it makes sense. It just feels weird with how quickly she becomes comfortable with it. She's able to fight on a level with Thor, like, in a day. Other than this, I do like what they do with her character as far as her determination to keep fighting. The thing about her being Mighty Thor is that while it does make her a god, it also takes away her body's ability to fight the cancer away. Her choosing to pick up the hammer and continue to fight is a reflection of what Thor said about how he found purpose through her, deciding to continue fighting even though her own life was at stake, which makes it so much more powerful when she destroys the Necro Sword, because she's destroying her own chance at life to save others. Gorr is a good villain. His motive for slaying the gods is that his daughter died because they did not help her, and this vengeful mindset is strengthened by the Necro Sword's effect on him. My only gripe with Gorr is that they should have showed more of how he butchered the gods. They kinda gloss over it. Now, there's been some complaints about recent Marvel villains becoming good by the end of the movie. Dumb argument. However, I think Gorr's ending is perfect. He sees that enacting his vow has only put people in the same situation he was in. Thor, being a god, choosing to spend his last moments with Jane, a mortal, is what shows him that his perception of the gods is not all true. Thor's actions get to Gorr, and he chooses to respawn his daughter instead. And of course, Thor promising to watch over Gorr's daughter is basically debunking the whole selfish gods thing. I really like the parallel between the heroes and the villain here. Both sides lose something. Those are the characters I wanted to discuss the most, but honorable mentions include Darcy! I was filled with excitement when she stepped into frame. And also Daryl. I recognized him from the Team Thor shorts they had during Civil War. Are those canon? Who knows, who cares, but Daryl is finally getting the respect he deserves. I do have a criticism. It lies with Stormbreaker. Now, in Avengers, no Hawkeye, they specifically mention how Stormbreaker is a weapon that you need to be of a certain power to wield. But in Thor 4, the one with Gorr, it felt like everyone could just lift this thing. Anyone could grab it and access the Bifrost, and that detracts from the godly, born of a dying star, Thanos-killing kind of weapon that Stormbreaker was set up to be. Also, it being jealous of Jonathan, was strange. That didn't happen in Endgame. One could argue that Thor, being more focused on fighting Thanos, he would have better control over his weapons than he would now. And while plausible, it does feel so much like a stretch, I think it just told me how Black Bolt works. Natalie Portman said that Thor, Attack of the Gorr, is Marvel's gayest movie. And yeah, that is true. I'm glad Disney Marvel is starting to take those steps in acknowledging the LGBTQ+ community. It's about time, honestly. I appreciate this movie being more upfront about it. They didn't dance around the idea, they just did it. Actually showing that Valkyrie likes women instead of doing that little bit of both bit. Another reason on why Thor is better than Loki. The one thing I felt Thor 4 more Thor plus Gorr special guest Korg was missing for me was one simple thing. Thor saying, "Oh my God." When Jane showed up at the end in the same vein, she said, "Oh my God," when he became worthy again in the first movie. I might have actually cried if that had happened. The last bonus note, and honestly the last note in the entire video until I inevitably remember what I didn't write down, I just wanted to point out a key difference between this movie and Doctor Strange 2. That difference being, I actually got a poster for this movie.